boldly engaging the mindless propaganda of our time, apparently with reason. This is Rage of the Age.
This is Rage of the Age, and we have with us a Marine Corps veteran of 8 years. He is the founder and creator of 5 Paragraph, and he is the author of a booklet called 5 Paragraph Business Plan Action Oriented. I want to welcome to you today, Michael Penny. Michael, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me, sir. It's an honor and a privilege to be here.
You wrote this booklet after 8 years in the Marine Corps to help businesses, adapt a more military action-oriented perspective into managing their business. Has this always been a goal for you, or did you just stumble upon it one day?
No, like many other people, I stumbled upon it. As we go through the world and we figure out what our purpose and our strengths are, we have the ability to apply them where they need to be focused. And that's what I figured out. After leaving the Marines in 2012 and having served in combat on 3 tours, and in between, I trained officers in marksmanship. And that experience played a huge significant role in what would come 2012 to 2017, which is the entrepreneurial journey of Mike Penny. Going out there, I invented a product, patented it, brought it all the way to market, put a management team around it, and was struggling. It was failing. And was talking to other veterans that were out there that were in entrepreneurship. It's easier to bridge that gap of trust with a fellow veteran who's now gone over and succeeded in entrepreneurship, more so, because we're coming out of the background of fellowship, right? So it's easier asking for advice coming out of a background of fellowship where our core values align. So I was talking with this fellow Marine, and he was like, "Hey, brother, at the end of the pitch, whole 9 yards." And this guy's, went to Norwich, did great things in the Marine Corps, great things in business, big venture capitalist. We're walking out of this meeting. He's like, "You're a sergeant in the Marines, weren't you?" I said, "Yeah." He's like, "Why don't you just brief this stuff in the operations order format?" And it was like, like this massive light bulb moment. So, and that way, that's how things work, right? You're out there struggling. It's not like, it's one of those things I tell people all the time. You can't be a failure. Your ideas and the things that you make and stuff like that, sure, they can fail. But you're not a failure. If you built a rickety boat and the thing sinks, you're not a failure. Your boat was. Maybe you should build a better boat.
That's right.
But that's it. That's ultimately how I stumbled across essentially 5 paragraphs. See, because as the old saying goes, don't reinvent the wheel. There's tons of business plans that are out there. You think that I'm going to build a better mousetrap when it comes to business planning? Probably not.
Right.
Here's what I did do, though. I took the operations order, which works really well. It's been around since 932 BC. Situation mission execution was used by the Spartiate in order to maneuver hoplite troops throughout the battlefield, which, by the way, the least riskiest of all of the warriors are professional warriors, because we know exactly what we're doing. We're not going to just lunge haphazardly into a battlefield. We're going to do it to where all of them are vanquished and all of us are thriving, right? So how can we do this with business? And that's where the journey started.
Yes.
How can we apply it to business? Yeah.
So I know there's probably going to be quite a few listening to this who are going to hear you say 5 paragraph and operations order and they're going to be like, "That's great. What are you talking about?" So break that down for us. When you talk about the 5 paragraph operations order, and I've never heard that before, bring me aboard with that.
Absolutely. So when you go to 5paragraph.com, you watch our very short video on there. One of the first things you're going to be hit with is no military experience required. Okay. All 5 branches of the U.S. military, now 6, operate on the 5 paragraph operations order. So from the Joint Chiefs all the way on down, everybody uses the same template, from the general to the private that's out there in the field actually executing missions. Everybody uses the same template. This is how you've got all of your branches operating together cohesively around the globe, maintaining accountability on a daily basis. This is how it works. So let's break it down very simply. 5 paragraphs: situation, mission, execution. And you have admin, logistics, sustainability. That's paragraph number 4. Paragraph number 5 is command, signal, and control in the long run. Why does this matter? Why do we break it down this way? Again, it's because we in the military, we don't just tell people what to do, right? A lot of people think that it's like a scene out of the Blues Brothers or something, where the general's like, you do this, and then everybody's like, hot, 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 hot. Right? That's just not how it works at all. So Peter Drucker, the godfather of the modern MBA, God rest him, a fantastic management mind overall, and he understood the difference between leading people and managing resources. And he understood this so well that he actually used the military as a hallmark to hold up, to say, hey, officer who's out there in the field working with 3 non-commissioned officers who are going out on patrol, myself being a non-commissioned officer, I, the squad leader, had to write an operations order, brief my platoon commander, back brief him on what I was going to do, then turn around and brief all of my squad, which typically there's 12 Marines and sailors in a squad, and then go out, commit action, engage on that patrol. It's just us, right? There's no, like, mommy and daddy can't look over your shoulder while you're on a patrol. That doesn't exist. Right? Good. So how do you get 18 to 25-year-olds to do that on their own? Think you could go to a college campus right now and get 18 to 25-year-olds to do that on their own?
No, not at all.
Yeah. Well, the military figured that out, didn't we? Heck yeah, we did. No screaming necessary. No. Empower. Yes. Empower your leaders from the lowest rank on up. Empowerment is what it's all about.
I definitely agree with that principle. If you have people who can actually lead, let them lead. Otherwise, you're going to lose them, or they're just not going to help you out of frustration. Right. Now the thing you mentioned though is, like you said, go to a college campus and try to replicate that. And I can definitely see that being just, you were talking about boats sinking. That would definitely be a ship going to the bottom of the sea.
Right.
But if I was like someone else listening to this right now, they might say, well, that's not a fair comparison, because in the military, you have a different corporate culture. And even though they're volunteers, they still do answer to orders. They're not like your typical employee that just like, well, I'm just not going to show up for this week and then come back later wanting their paycheck and wondering why they're not getting paid. In the military, they every day, often multiple times, you go to them and say, here I am, I'm here, and you report. And you can't just walk away and say, this job ain't for me, I'm leaving. No, you got a couple more years to fulfill. So it's a different atmosphere. So if I'm like this civilian person frustrated with how my business is, going about operations and making things happen and leadership and things like this, and I hear you pitching this to me, but maybe in the back of my head, I'm thinking, yeah, that's great for the military, but what does that have to do in my corporate culture? How would you answer that? Right.
Oh, absolutely. I get this. Especially, I'm glad that you used the term corporate culture, and I'm glad that we're talking about from a higher education perspective. Okay, because when I talk to higher education, let's start there first. When I talk higher education, it's typically human resources, it's continuing education, it's adult learning.
Right.
Typically who I'm talking to. Bear in mind also that 5 paragraph is being trained to junior high students. So when you look at our reviews and you see it on the bulletin board at school, which I have a junior high age, young man, and for a son, and let me tell you, accountability is one of those things. Anybody who's got a junior high kid running around, all right, and it's only going to get worse. So, but how do you empower those people? Because a lot of individuals, as they're coming out of the collegiate environment, They learned a speciality. Potentially, they learned a speciality other than underwater basket weaving.
Yes.
And you have the ability to onboard them and bring them into your organization. Great. That's the exact same thing that we do with officers in the Marine Corps. They go to the basic school. They learned how to write these operations orders using their college education. And they learned that at a very young age. But still, I hear you. You didn't want to wear camouflage to work. You didn't want to go into the military to begin with. I totally understand from that perspective. It's not for everybody. But again, let's go to your second point, corporate culture. We're not really targeting corporate America. The majority of corporations that are out there are gigantic lumbering giants that can't pivot to save their lives.
Yes.
And I know because I've spoken to rooms full of them, and they laugh when I say that because it's true.
Because it's true.
And that's okay, right? Bill Smith loves the big lumbering giant because Six Sigma works in big lumbering giants where you have results driven, and you're only results driven, especially Six Sigma will work. You can get right down into the minutia of things. We work with healthcare. Plan, do, check, act is something that's applied in manufacturing and healthcare.
Yes.
Well, wait a minute. Hold on. Time out. Plan, do, check, act applied in manufacturing and healthcare.
Right.
Well, wait a minute. How many widgets are you going to manufacture today? You better be able to tell me. You better be able to tell me. How many patients are you going to take care of today?
Right.
You have no freaking idea. So how can you use the same management method to build a car as you would to treat a patient?
Right.
They aren't process driven at all to treat a patient. That's the whole point. We have something which centers on the situation rather than the outcome. So if you want to create the same widget over and over and over and over and over and over again, then you can use Plan, Do, Check, Act and Edward Deming's the third. Then you can use Six Sigma and a lot of these other things. That's great. Heck, you can even use Agile and the Agile mindset in developing software for the hardware application. All of those management methods fit underneath of the umbrella, which is 5-paragraph. And how can I say that confidently? Because the same way that you fly a jet is not the same way that you pull a cord on an artillery piece, and it's not the same way that you engage in surgery in a battlefield hospital. Hey, what does that have to do with anything? They all fall underneath the 5-paragraph operations order format.
Yes.
Every single specialty in the United States military falls under that operations order format. How you do your job is how you do your job.
Yes.
But how we plan and execute those missions. And here's the real important part that people really miss out on. When we delegate our authority and somebody goes and takes action on our behalf, we're delegating that piece to the greater overall mission. We must provide them the ability to give their observations, to give their feedback.
Yeah.
So that way we can take it into account when we go to plan for the next go around. This is where I break down the military stuff altogether. Stop thinking military. Well, hey, wait a minute. It's a military management method for the modern workforce. It is. But the idea here is for you to be able to commit action out there in the field and to be able to gather feedback through debriefs so that you can combine it into your plan on the next go around. 80% of your plan on the next go around is going to be your people's feedback. You want to reduce turnover? You want to increase mission buy-in? You want accountability? Actually take into account the observations that your employees make out there on the ground. Take it into account when you plan for the next go around.
And that's probably something that another one of those things that people don't realize in the military. And I mean this overall. Of course, you have certain scenarios of commanders that don't play along with this, but as a concept in the military, the idea is that you get feedback even from those below you to figure out how next time to do something that maybe didn't work the way you wanted it this time. I know in the Army, we called it after action reviews. I'm not sure.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know if
that's
they gave
exactly
y'all,
our terminology.
I figured the Marines use like crayons and paper or something, but however y'all get it is up to you. But
Love
you got the feedback from the troops, and it ties into the next plan. And after operations, you would have people briefing you. So this whole idea of this rigid hierarchy of the general hollering orders and everyone going
Right.
hot, 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 hot is, I mean, there's a time for that, like when the bullets fly. But when
Sure.
when you're planning and you're prepping and you're getting everything together, it's a lot more elaborate than that. And another thing you brought up is interesting. And I don't know if you have this included in your model, if you will. You were a non-commissioned officer teaching people who outranked you how to do something, which is common in a lot of the services because of their experience. Officers don't just get their commission and show up the next day and start hollering at people what they got to do. They go through a very lengthy process of being told and taught things by people with years of experience. And to my observation, that is severely missing in the civilian model. Is that something you see and speak to?
Oh, absolutely. Well, and I'm so glad that you bring this up because it does go into the infrastructure aspect of what 5-paragraph brings to your organization.
Okay.
Right. So when you go to 5paragraph.com and you get the book is free, by the way. All that we ask you pay shipping and handling. And as a bonus, you're going to get 30 days free access to our online environment. This is called the 5P Inner Circle. So if you go to 5paragraph.com, you'll see in the upper right corner where it says log in and join the 5P Inner Circle. All right. So in the Inner Circle, you've got our template as well as our learning experience. So you go through the template as you're going through the learning experience. That simple. Template, video. And we have audio on there as well. No, we do not have a digital version of the book. You need to be able to hand jam into the book. Get it out of your brain. Get it down on paper. You'll see when you go to 5paragraph.com, you'll see what we talk about as stars. You are the visionary. 5P is the integrator.
Right.
Like, this isn't the Michael J. Penny show. This is 5paragraph.com. I'm the conveyance of it. So you talk about my past experience at the basic school. Now, I was in Quantica. I was training officers. I was one of 8 Marines who are on what's called the Hill with Weapons Training Battalion. And we're the marksmanship instructors. We stand out there and wear the campaign cover. The campaign cover is a marksmanship cover so that you can tilt it in toward the sun and relieve that or put shade onto the rear sight aperture. The only reason why drill instructors wear campaign covers is because marksmanship instructors gave them the campaign cover so that we could tell them apart from recruits. That's it. So campaign cover guy stands up there in front of 300 lieutenants and instructs these lieutenants who are all fingering firearms and are going to go out, dry fire those firearms, and then live fire those firearms. So when a teacher tells you that they're having a real hard day, yeah, okay. My students get live ammunition. So I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear about your stress.
That's a bad day.
So now on top of it, in that job, the other thing that was required of us is we had to go out and train the requalification on the rifle and the pistol as well. So that's when you would have 900 shooters out there. You're in the tiers. You're out projecting your voice, all taught outside when you're doing that requal stuff. When we trained lieutenants, it was inside. When we did requal, it was outside. Right? So you're getting the diversity in the environment, and you're working with multiple instructors where you're delegating instructor abilities to these other individuals in order to then train mass amounts of troops, up to 900 people. At a clip for weeks on end, right? This then, when I went back out to the Fleet Marine Force, I became an advisor, an embedded advisor to the Afghan Uniform Police. So there were 12 of us, there were 83 of them. And how do you work within the constraints of you've got a platoon commander, you've got a platoon sergeant, but you are working with your counterpart there. By the way, you don't get to tell anybody what to do. That's not at all your job. As an advisor, you're looking to marry 2 organizations together. One being the Afghan Uniform Police, the other being the Marine element that's down on the ground. Sometimes we're working with the Army and Navy. So it goes back to the idea of, yes, being able to provide a structure from a management perspective, a plan to be able to coordinate all of this stuff. but to be able to provide an infrastructure within your organization. You can see we have enlisted and we have officer.
Mm-hmm.
And inside of those ranks, as you're going up inside of them, the officer track typically takes a leadership track. The enlisted side can take either a leadership track or a specialty track, right? We have master sergeants and stuff like that. They are masters at their craft. You have specialty masters at their craft in your organization right now. I guarantee it.
Yeah.
Your IT guy is like locked on, master of the craft, all of this other stuff, and wants nothing to do with your overall leadership track and your planning perspective. Because I know tons of them who are like that. I'm going to tell you right now, for all of your tech people that are out there, one of my favorite things that I love doing is sitting down and just nerd out on me, dude. You just give it all to me.
Yeah.
Because I'm interested. I really am. I'm interested. I'm not the guy who's just coming in a suit. I will come in a suit and tie. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I'm the guy who's going to be listening to you intently, getting the expertise, the specialty out of your dome down on paper.
Mm-hmm.
Because, man, that's gold right there, especially for the leadership track. So it's go to 5paragraph.com, get the book. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about as far as the planning perspective. This gives you access into the 5P inner circle. Mm-hmm. And then that enables you to take your plan out of here, put it down onto paper, and then start to command your business like a general. And when it's ready to move on to the next step, that's when we do a one-on-one advisor session with people.
Yeah. I can definitely, I think the IT people are more like modern day alchemist or witchcraft people, but digitally. And, so there's that, that distance I have with them. But, but I like what you're saying here, because a lot of business, even smaller businesses, you have a lot of different moving parts. You got the computer geek witchcraft IT guy on the corner, right? And then over here you have the person that they just run the kiosk and barely that's what they can do. And then you have the person ordering the supplies, doing the logistics, and then you have maybe a guy that's like good at the advertising or whatever, or that's their job, they do the advertising. And everybody has and like you said, each person's only concerned about what they got to do. And that's probably, to me, being prior service and probably others, that's the frustrating thing. When you go to any business to get something done, everyone looks at you like, I don't care. It's not my job.
There it is.
I don't know how to do that. And even if it is their job, it's like, why are they paying you to be here, sort of idea. But but the idea of the 5-paragraph order, of course, you can correct me if I'm out on a limb here, but you take all those moving parts and you make them more cohesive. It's not a thing to make people better at their job. This is a manner of organizing and collecting information and recycling it back through, bringing everybody together to operate as a team. Yet everyone just focuses on what they're doing, but they're aware of what's happening to their left and to their right. Am I right?
Yes.
Yes.
Nail on the head.
I figured it out.
Nail on the head. Well, because look, the hurdle for some people is, well, do you want to come in and tell us, like, are you gonna change how we're doing everything? No, not at all. I'm gonna empower you folks so that you're. Let me tell you who we're targeting. All right, so that folks have a better understanding. From an organization perspective, we're looking for people who are business leaders, people who are business leaders, who are coming out of that small to medium size. They know that business development is a necessity, and they're looking to employ this, right? So they're poking around. They have processes in place. A lot of them are skilled labor oriented. They're really good at going and providing, say, a service for someone. They've got the understanding locked in as far as the process to be able to go and make money on these things or to deliver a good product or service to a customer. They just need the business management infrastructure put into place. Because as you're growing this thing, as you're growing the business, everybody needs to be on board in the same way. Like when I came into the Marine Corps, I was told and shown what the 5-paragraph operations order was. The first time that I was actually given, say, a formal period of instruction on it wasn't until I was a non-commissioned officer and had already been in my role for about 3.5 years. Was the first time that I really started to write my own operations orders. So you hit it nail on the head as far as we don't want to get in anybody else's job, how they're doing their job, the process of their job.
Right.
It's all about taking everything out of people's heads, putting it down on one sheet of music. We're all playing off of it. You're exactly right. It's so that people can have their scope. I actually do this in a slide when I present to a group of people. When you're running a dictatorship, you have a telescope and a very limited field of view.
Right.
And you can see stuff that's out there from a 30,000 foot perspective.
And you
But
holler
you're
at
typically
people and they
seeing big
go, hut, 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 hut.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so, but when you empower them with IP, each one of your leaders gets a scope. Okay, so by that same token, if you give them a scope, you've got to take their observations. You've got to take them into account. This is honestly the reason why I harp on it is because it's the biggest hurdle for small business and medium-sized business owners as they're going to expand. Right? Some people call it economic gardening. Other people, they might be doing vertical integration or something like that, where they're trying to acquire multiple pieces. Right, which is what we do. So when you're in 5P in the inner circle as part of the business development group overall, you're going to be interacting with other business leaders that are using the same template. So now when you go to create partnerships, you're using the same template. Like this is how the Army and the Marines work together. Right. How do we construct a partnership? We write an operations order and we coordinate. So it really is to the benefit of everybody who's out there, who's super, not just tech, but super technical about their job. Because there are a lot of people that are out there that are like, let me just do my job, leave me the hell alone.
Right.
They are especially going to love 5P because, and I'll give you a little bit of foreshadowing for the people who are like, yeah, but how do you gather their observations? You were talking about after action review. Here's how our cycle works, and you can see it on 5paragraph.com. Same cycle as in the military, same cycle you already know and love. You plan, you act, you debrief, and that's immediately following an action, you debrief. You combine those debriefs into after action reports. You combine your after-action reports into an after-action review, and then that one after-action review goes back in to the plan on the next cycle around. So you can see how one plan disperses out amongst all of your leaders. Just say the 10 departments that you have and the millions of actions that are being taken place on a daily basis. And then those debriefs combine back into an after-action report and an after-action review, one singular point, and you take that into account for your next planning go-around.
I hope you're enjoying today's episode. If you really like Rage of the Age, we will encourage you to leave a review on the platform that you're listening to, but especially if you would like a copy of my book, Not in the Wind, Earthquake, or Fire, which is a first-hand account of my second deployment to Iraq, and it's filled with many spiritual insights. I'm going to give away 10 copies for free, and every week I will give out a copy for someone who leaves a review of this podcast. You can do that by going to Twitter, write your review, and then hashtag it Rage of the Age Now, or you can go to Facebook, find our page, Rage of the Age, click the reviews, recommend us, and then write in your review. I hope next week to give away a copy of Not in the Wind, Earthquake, or Fire to someone who leaves a review.
You're listening to Rage of the Age. Rage of the Age. Politics, religion, economics, and history with a conservative bend.
I deal with people with all kinds of lines of work, and being a pastor, they kind of, throw the things they're going through in life onto me. And I know a lot of people in their line of works are frustrated by this It seems to be like an infection in business now, where everything comes top down, and it messes everybody's work. Like they just want to do their work, but now they can't because of some restriction that they always say some office somewhere at some location that probably no one even knows where it's at, has passed down this decree. This is how we shall do business. And everyone's like, we can't even function that way.
Yeah.
But then they're put into this uncomfortable bubble where they have to pretend it's working.
Right.
or they would be willing to explain why it don't, but there's no apparatus set up to where they can bring that forth and say, hey, you've just decreased my productivity by 50%, or I can't make any sales right now, or we've just lost half of our best workers because of what you just pulled. But you can't tell nobody. So this feedback is a very important aspect to any organization, I think.
Yeah. Well, and this is one of the reasons why we say that we're not necessarily targeting corporate and their big, huge juggernauts and all of the other stuff, is because you're seeing through infiltration, you're seeing exactly what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, come on, let's call a spade a spade. Now it's time to break out the old antitrust laws, break up some of these monopolies.
I agree with you there, brother.
Monopolism breeds socialism. That's how it works. We're going to control the paycheck, and therefore we're going to control the purse strings overall. Need to break that up, need to have greater competitors that are out there, small, medium businesses, being able to compete, have a lower barrier to entry, so that way those small to medium-sized businesses have less need for driven capital, more need for resources. We're seeing that right now. Mm-hmm. We're seeing that out in the economic environment. You're seeing a larger skills-based labor force stepping away from STEM, stepping away from globalism, going back towards making America great again through building and all sorts of different things. And it's not going to be just plan, do, check, act in order to manufacture something and then it's all going to be results driven. It's not going to be that. You have to have mission buy-in from the people who are building the things that are on the ground. So if you're only results driven, you're only looking at your share price, 5-paragraph is a threat to you. I'm going to tell you right now.
Yes,
it is an outright threat. And the way that it works, and the reason why it just absolutely crushes competitors that are out there. Like my first ever client with this, they're an insurance provider. And none of them are military veterans. None of them.
Right.
And they're like, okay, we have to figure out what this expansion model is going to be. They're in 7 states. They had about 22 million in the pipeline. Fast forward 3.5 years later. 3.5 years later. My original point of contact in there has been promoted 4 times. Is now the senior vice president in charge of operations. Went from business development account manager to VP of business development, or director of business development. VP of business development is now senior VP of operations. They've increased from 7 to 23 to 47 states. They make $580 million annually, and they've had to rebrand. Go to 5paragraph.com, click on Hire 5P. You can read all of our testimonials that are on there for how we help out organizations. Because it's one thing to get the book and now you're in the inner circle. That works. If you're a startup, if you're a brand new entrepreneur, if you're just learning the ropes, no military experience required whatsoever. You get the book, you join the inner circle. You're going to have access to me, Michael J. Penny, the founder of 5paragraph.com. We're going to do an assessment together. This is me pulling out of my background the tools that I learned out of the military to directly apply it with you. If I can go to Afghanistan where there's an 85% illiteracy rate, and only a little bit of Pashto do I really understand, okay? So working with a classroom of Afghans who do not read or write and telling them that you learn this in a school, they don't know what you're talking about. Okay, so you have to be able to bridge that gap, not just in trust, but they have to be able to learn. Oh, I didn't tell them that I learned everything that I know about guns in school. No. I told them that my grandfather passed down to my father, who passed on to me all of my knowledge that I have about firearms.
Yes.
Then all of a sudden they were paying attention to me. You know what my nickname was? Topak Ma'alem. That means rifle wise man, which is so much better than white devil.
That is a cool nickname to have. Rifle wise man.
Okay.
Oh, I have to up my game. That's just so horrible.
Well, you gotta. It's just the other side of the world away.
Yeah.
So, but that's the thing, is targeting small elements, employing the advisor background, working with that smaller element to then think smarter, right? Operate smarter, not harder.
Yes.
In order to go and potentially do an attack, take over an overwhelming force, defend an area, whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
And the exact same thing applies into business. It really, really does.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm working with somebody on a daily basis and I'm doing one-on-one advisor sessions, right, like this, we do it over a digital interface, right, where we do a video conference. Okay, and anybody who's ever seen my podcast, or if you go to 5paragraph.com, you'll see how I've got the television in the background, and I can also do screen shares. But I go through it, and I can do all of this virtually. You know, when people are saying, hey, I'm going to stay at home voluntarily, and I'm going to distance and all of this other stuff, that's totally fine. We have the capability to do that. So we can do one-on-one advisor sessions.
Yeah.
That's when leaders really start getting into their plan. That's when I like working with the generals, so to speak, who think from the general perspective. And then, okay, you want to put 10 people into the conference room around the table. Great. We can do that virtually, or I can come into your location and we're around it's up to 10 participants when we do our day-long workshop. If you want something more than that, we can do 1, 2, 3 days custom learning experience. Day 1, you're learning and practically applying 5-paragraph business plan. This book, for those of you who are listening. Oh, yes. Ooh, it's even got a matte finish. Anyway, you got to get it in front of you. But get the book in front of you, because you've got to fill it out as you're going through it. And when you start filling things out, it's manifest destiny. It pulls it out of your brain, out of your heart, puts it down on paper. Forget the expectations that you have unless you put it down on paper. There is no reason having expectations unless you put it down on paper and know what is required.
You had me hooked at manifest destiny. That there, just wraps it all up into, it's your destiny. I tell you, you're talking about monopolies, breaking monopolies up. I agree with that. Now, I think the first one I would want to target is the big media monopoly. They need to get this incinerated, divided up, and, made honest again, sort of thing. But I keep hearing you talking about other methods, philosophies, if you will, of managing business is always results driven.
Yep.
And I guess what I'm hearing is what you're providing is something that's more organization driven. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Yes. Man, you're hitting it just nail on the head.
All day. Well, I'm a hammer-wise man from...
There you go. Yeah. Well, okay, look at it like this, okay? I have this wonderful woman named Lisa who works with me. Lisa is a fantastic person. If I just look at her results, it's great. It's great from a results perspective. It really is. She's never served a day in the military. She fills out her debriefs. I have the joy of reading through her debriefs. And I honestly and sincerely do enjoy reading through her debriefs. She puts on other people that I could potentially connect with, how she interacted with certain people out in the environment. What are the atmospherics really that are happening out there? What's kind of what's the tempo that's occurring? And we primarily focus on LinkedIn because we're a business leader's tool. This is a B2B sale kind of a deal. So we're focusing out there, and she can provide her feedback on what she's seeing, on what she's feeling, and what she's observing. She might even put on there, it was rainy. Let's say, for instance, outside where she works. She works remote. How do you manage your remote employees? How do you work with remote workers?
Yes.
5P's got that on lockdown. That's how we maintain accountability around the globe on a daily basis. So, and Lisa's great. She'll provide her observations in there. It's never too little, and it's very rarely, if ever, too much. It's getting it out of her head onto paper, and it's allowing her a touchstone. And I tell you, this is how it works. You pull up your debrief template. We have all of these templates. You go to 5paragraph.com. It's very, very simple. We're not trying to inundate you, okay? You got your business plan template, immediate action plan, you got your debrief template. Those are primarily the ones that you're going to be working on, right? As far as your roundabout follow-up, you've got your after-action report and your after-action review. The one and only other template, because we have 6 total, is a template for how, like when you give a briefing, there needs to be a checklist. Same thing with a debrief. There needs to be a checklist. Do you have everybody that is a part of the team? You have to do a briefing with everybody there that is involved in the organization. So, to answer your question directly, is it an organizational thing? Yes, absolutely it is. No, it's not results driven. Are results a part of it? Yeah, of course. We have a desired end state that we're always looking to achieve. But what's great is being able to empower Lisa to provide observations and feedback that is not just results.
Wow.
Even so much as the arm on my computer chair broke. I'm dealing with the heat stuff inside of my office. It's stuffy in here. Who do I share that with? Who do I talk to? Oh yeah, you got to go to maintenance. Right. But, where is the observation? Where is the feedback being taken into account by that person's immediate superior?
Right.
Why do they not know that? And then on top of it, why is that person's quote unquote, I'll use the term leader very loosely, because that person is probably inside of their office focused on doing additional grunt work because they were promoted to their level of incompetency. And the Peter principle can sneak up on all of us.
Yes, absolutely.
But this is the thing, when it comes to leadership, man, I'm telling you, I used to get yelled at all the time for how little time I spent in my office and how much time I spent out there engaging with people. Yes. What can I do? What can I do? What can I do? Great leaders focus on the nouns. Put the right people in the right place and give them the right things. You can accomplish anything, anything at all. Yes. Right? I am perfect. Team perfection. That's how it works. So it really is a team building thing. It's an organizational building thing. Yes, it's doing away with the results driven, which is just, hey, I'm looking at my spreadsheet and I've got to figure out why line number 2 isn't working. Right. Well, if you actually took observations into account, if you actually took feedback, how about, and I love this because I've heard this anecdote from a fellow veteran. How about clapping to increase productivity by 300%? Clapping? Yeah. They were producing giant delivery trucks that were rolling off the assembly line, and it was going underneath of this beautiful American flag. So what old boy do? He went out there, and every time a new truck went off the assembly line, he would clap, and he's like, there you go. Another one making America great. Yeah. There you go. Within a week, all of a sudden, all of the leadership's on board. Then within a month, every time a truck went off, you'd hear whistles and hooting and hollering and all of this other stuff. Yeah. Increase productivity by 300%. That guy was canned.
What?
That guy was fired.
Oh, you're kidding me.
Oh, no. The corporate leadership that were, and I'm going to tell you right now, if you have an MBA and you use your MBA mentality as let's say, for instance, a weapon to hold against somebody who's clapping that just increased your productivity by 300%, I want you to research who created the MBA, the Masters in Business Administration. I want you to look up Peter F. Drucker. I want you to look into his overall construct of what is management, what is leadership, right? Culture is the greater overall aspect of any other organization that is out there. Your culture is what is necessary in order to breed long-term success. Culture is the reason why Samsung went from being a rice company to a cell phone manufacturer over its longevity. Right. Yeah. So this is the point. When you go to Drucker and you start reading through, and one of my favorite little talisman books that I enjoy carrying around is the Essentials Drucker, right? And this is what other manager professors, other leaders have put together, which are Peter Drucker's teachings. It's a great book. Yes, it was one of those that was prescribed in a college classroom a long time ago to me. I tell people Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. That's another great one that's out there. you're going to be able to see some of the nuances in it. Peter Thiel's 0 to 1, which is how I originally came up with the idea of don't reinvent the wheel. Right. Take the operations order, take nuts and bolts of great business plans, put them together. Now you've got 5P, the military management method for the modern workforce. So, it's one of those things. It's like influencers for me took the time to sit down and write books, which then provide us this phenomenal education. So even though I don't have a master's in business administration, I can tell you that Drucker's probably rolling in his grave right now, watching these things that are being jammed down people's throat. That is all result shareholder price. Right. We have a process. Somebody shows up. Here's my biggest pet peeve. I'll go through, I'll do the first thing that I do on the ground whenever I work with any of you who are organizational leadership that's out there, I'm going to do an after action. That's the first thing. I would never come into your organization and think that I know everything about it. I'm going to do an after action. I'm going to get as much of the specialties into it as I possibly can. I'm going to get all of their understanding and knowledge first. Right. Okay. Here's my number one pet peeve. When I start asking questions and I go, why do you do it this way? Well, because that's how we've always done it.
I know. I don't even know why.
It's the wet monkey, right? You know what I'm talking about? The monkey that climbs up for the bananas and then you spray the other monkeys. You got to research. You got to look up the wet monkey.
Now it's time for the question of the week. Last week's question of the week was, should Christians be involved in politics? And I want to highlight a response by Leah Claypool, who said, if Christians are not part of politics, then who does that leave? So yes, we should be involved. We had quite a bit of traction on that question. Overwhelmingly, almost all of them except one person answered in the affirmative that Christians should be involved in politics. I find that very reassuring, whereas for some time now, for years, it has been actually discouraged even among Christians. This week's question of the week is, what do you think of current American business management methods? I'm going to post that question on Rage of the Age Facebook page. I'm also going to post it on Twitter at Rage of the Age Now. Find the question, leave a response, and I will highlight one of those responses next week. Again, the question of the week is, what do you think of current American business management methods?
You're listening to Rage of the Age. Rage of the Age. Politics, religion, economics, and history with a conservative bend.
I'm definitely going to have to do that.
Why do we do stuff? It's like in the Marine Corps. Why do we have those stupid haircuts in the Marine Corps? My Lord, are they god awful. I'll tell you why. It's because we've had them the same since World War I. And the only reason why we have those god-awful haircuts is because we originally needed to have skin contact all the way around our dome piece so that our gas mask could maintain a seal. That's why. And they had the same haircut regulations since World War I. Yeah. What? Like, I don't get it. Do you know how many times an enemy combatant grabbed my hair when I was wearing a Kevlar? Never. It's like, and I understand the clean shave thing. I would not want to have this raging beard over in Afghanistan. Shave your head, shave your face. When you're in a sand-filled, disgusting environment like that, absolutely. It makes perfect sense. See, that's another non-requisite of 5P. No one has to shave their head when you use 5P. See, isn't that
it's not
great?
Required. That's awesome. Hey,
here's the other thing too, is a lot of people would be like, the military, don't you mean screaming and yelling? No, I really don't. Because after boot camp, the guys who screamed and yelled were the ones that we just looked at and were like, you ain't got it, buddy. You ain't got it. If you have to scream or yell to get your people to do stuff, not so much. I never had to scream or yell or anything. I would just be like, okay, well, I guess we need to go engage in remedial training. So let's pack all of our stuff, go out to the field there, boys. And it's like, oh no, Sergeant Penny is gonna, oh no. And it's like, yeah, I'm gonna hike you to death. And then when we're done, I'm gonna create a faux ambush against you. And then I'm gonna hit you with artillery sims. And I'm gonna be out there with you the entire time. It's not hazing, it's training.
It's training.
And I'm going to slay that body with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's the thing. That's the thing, right? How many people are faux leaders and will ask other people to do stuff, and they themselves have never actually engaged in it.
Right.
And they themselves won't be a part of it.
Yes.
Like, yeah, I'm totally asking you to do this so that I can go hit the links, see never.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, man, what?
Yeah.
You know, and that's the thing, too, that a lot of people can't wrap their head around. Like my mom, she retired out of the C-suite of a healthcare organization. She worked her way up from being a candy striper, volunteering in high school, right? She went to a one-room schoolhouse.
Yes.
Like, I love my mom so much. She set the bar so freaking high, I'm telling you.
Yes.
And so went from that all the way up, education, master's in science and nursing, all of this other stuff, and becomes C-suite level executive. And she and I have these conversations all the time, before she retired and afterwards now, talking about healthcare perspective and what is exactly what you're talking about. People are being jammed from the top down. Here's your electronic records keeping system. Here's this method of how we're supposed to eliminate slips, trips, and falls at the lowest level. You know, all of these other things. And that's huge, especially, you know, from an insurance perspective and everything else. How do we eliminate slips, trips, and falls?
Sure.
Yeah. So how do we do that? And then she's, you know, people are going through all of these results. Well, we have X amount of falls, so we've got to eliminate that amount of falls. And I'm like, did any of you actually like ask any of the people that work with these patients how you would eliminate slips, trips, and falls? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And, you know, their leadership is taking it into account, but that was one of the things that I love doing. And I went into Mid-Michigan Healthcare. I was working with them on eliminating slips, trips, and falls. And I just walked around with my notebook, and I was talking to all of these nurses that were all on the floor, and oh man, they had all sorts of great ideas. So I helped them put together a plan, and they're looking at me going like, where in the hell did you come up with this stuff? You have no healthcare background whatsoever.
Right.
Where did you come up with this? And I'm like, it's one day with a notebook talking to your nurses. And I had all of the information that I needed.
Yeah.
And what, you know, and here's the other thing too, is that it's like, well, some of this stuff might be overkill, you know, this. Well, look, I've been the private sitting on the ammo can, whatever, you know, just gave one little line of feedback during a debrief. And then, you know, 2-3 months later, now all of a sudden, the whole area of operation is now using this new technique or procedure for how we're employing something. Man, we see that all the time in the military. I know that you have seen it to where like the inspector general's going around, or the regimental combat team commander or something like that. And and some leaders who are not good leaders at all, they're like, y'all need to keep your mouth shut. All right. Speak when spoken. Speak when spoken to, right? Meanwhile, here's Penny. Right. This is oh man.
There's always that guy.
Exactly. Be like, hey, sir, what are we doing about the radio situation down here? Because we have like zero comm batteries and all of the other stuff. It's like, why are you bringing that up? I'll tell you why I'm bringing that up, because I don't want to be left with my ass in the wind in the middle of a firefight. I don't have any communication. You know, so which that was a very, very real story of my time in combat, where it was like, well, I'll just tell you, on my third tour, I never once worked with my own battalion or a battalion worth of support. It was always, we were somebody's adjacent, you know, an attachment, always, wherever we went, like a lot of other combat teams that are out there. I fought in three combat tours and 2 wars before the age of 25. So that, you know, a decade ago was when I got out of the Marine Corps, but like that left an everlasting impression on me to never want to go be in a hierarchical organization, because, believe it or not, the most freedom that I ever had was while I was in the military.
Ironic, isn't it?
Well, it is.
Yes.
But, you know, I bring this up to other people, and they're like, how can you say that? And I say, look, I fulfilled all of the skills-based certification requirements that are necessary for me in order to be able to go and do that job. And then they say, well, you got your certs, don't you? If you're certified, then you're good. Go and do the job. Oh, and by the way, when you mess up, we're going to come on down with the hand of Almighty God and ruin your entire existence when you mess this up. Pretty unforgiving, right? Yeah. So is walking through, like a minefield and having the potential hazard of getting the legs blown off. So if you mess up, you're going to be mangled for the rest of your life or dead. Or even worse, if you mess up, you're going to get one of your soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen killed. By the grace of God, everybody that I was ever in charge of, we all wound up coming home together in one piece. Amen. Thank you, God. Amen. And because that's the hardest responsibility ever of any young leader and any young commander, especially in that environment where you're like, I do not want to write a letter home. I do not want to do that. That is a god awful sinking pit of the feeling, in your stomach kind of a deal. And it's like, well, how could you maintain that level of accountability? Isn't that a high stress situation? All of that other stuff. Yes, that's when I come alive. That's when these young men and women who are serving in our armed forces right now, that's when they come alive. When we come back to this Disney World experience that is America, which I love, I love America so much, I'm willing to not only die for it, I'll go out and kill for America. That's how much I love America. Okay, when I come back to it, it's this Disney World insurgency that we're experiencing right now. It's like, time out. Hold on. We're not going to burn books. We're not going to have thought police. Right. I am not going to deal with this stuff. And by God, my children will not deal with this. Okay, so when people are going, what's the difference in between you and your friends and everybody else? You go look at everybody who's worn masks. I don't wear masks. I do not concern myself with that stuff. I'm going to tell you right now that we need a heck of a lot more lions than we do sheep. Okay, we need more leaders who are willing to stand up and do what's right, to be able to take charge and carry out the plan of the day. That's how you get young people to be able to go and accomplish amazing things. You empower them.
Empowerment, yes.
And that's the thing that you're not learning on a college campus when you walk away into indentured servitude and golden handcuffs for the rest of your life. And frankly, they have no leg to stand on. No one's going to be there for a counter argument. There is no counter argument to be made. Right. And so then what do you get? Monopolists, socialism, everybody's learning STEM. No one can actually take care of themselves. And now what do you see that's out there? DIY, backyard homesteading, growing a garden, raising livestock. I do that. Yes. I'm standing here in a suit and tie. I go into beautiful structures. I talk with people all day long. Yeah. And then I hop in my fully paid off American-made Chevy truck, and I ride my Harley Davidson on the weekends. And why do I do that? Because I live by the Ramsey method, because I don't want to be beholden to any creditor. I never wanted that. So how do you eliminate all of your debt except for your mortgage in order to be able to do these things? So it's like you've got to be able to stand up in your own personal truth from a leadership perspective and say, yeah, I'm willing to take my lumps on this one. I'm willing to go off initiative-wise and do something else that's over here. But we'll see it. We'll see it, especially at the, right now we're coming into Q3 of 2020. A whole lot of people are realizing what occurred at the end of Q4 in 2019 and all the way through Q1 and 2. There was a whole lot of stock that was being dumped. There was a whole lot of people that wound up hitting high ground. We're seeing it as the dust clears. We're seeing this, people say that there's an economic downturn. That's what happens when you go after people for antitrust and all of the other censorship that's taken place. Yes. I'd love to direct people towards my Twitter feed. Too bad I was kicked off of Twitter and entirely censored.
Wow.
That happens to conservative business leaders, I guess.
I guess so.
Wow. But that's the thing, though, is that it's like, I 100% am here to help small businesses to medium-sized businesses look to scale and grow. You're part of the silent majority. You are in what they call flyover America. You're not a swamp creature. You are out there to make America great again. You go to 5paragraph.com. You see the letter from the president that we have that's up on there to me. I proudly put that out there. You go and you look at the TED Talk. I lead with my core values out front.
Yes.
And this goes hand in hand. I would say this to every business owner that is out there. If you are putting your core values down before you go to sell a good product or service, you are selling your soul.
Mm-hmm.
You need to lead with those core values in everything that you do, and you will see immeasurable success because you will get immeasurable reciprocity. You're adding value to a tribe of people who share in your core values.
Yes.
That's amazing, brother. That's fellowship right there.
Yes.
That's what it's all about.
It is, brother.
So
I tell you what, I got some bonus material from you today, man. I'm glad you're with us here. I could almost just lay down and hit the record, and when you're finished, you wake me up. And oh no, I resonate with a lot of things you're saying. I think people have just sold their souls for money, quick fixes, like the guy getting fired for increasing production. It was probably by a guy that just didn't want to look bad. And he was just covering, I'll just get rid of you and do what I say. But it's like, and that's the thing. But if you have an organization that's organization driven, not just results and who's in charge sort of thing, you can find those people and get rid of them. The people that need to be removed were the people who fired him. And that's obvious. But they entrench themselves and they stay there and they don't let any threat, real perceived, come at them. and they shut them down as quick as they can. But it was a pleasure having you with us today, Michael Penny.
Yes, sir.
Not only are you, business savvy, you actually have some, you can articulate things intelligently, which I did not expect initially from you, but bonus again. Really,
thank you, sir.
I love having you here, talking with us, and it's been a great pleasure having you on this show.
Absolutely. Thank you. It's an honor and a privilege. I really do appreciate you having me on.
You've been listening to Rage of the Age. If you loved today's podcast, make sure to leave a review on the media you're listening through. Secure future episodes by heading over to rageoftheage.com and clicking the RSS feed button. Until next time, this has been Rage of the Age.